a sort of an axis. Just use your body as an axis and pretend your arms belong to somebody else. Just do a little crisscross in your body, right and left. Don't think about your arms, just let them dangle at the sides. It's a really nice, loose feeling. And when you start stirring left to right, you're integrating the mind as a whole body system. Okay? And if you want something that's a little more energetic and energizing rather than just soothing, then you can go to slap the gong. Bong! 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 You love it. Bong! Bring your voice into it. Bong! I know we spend a lot of time shushing our kids. And there's a time to talk, but there's also a time, there's a time to be quiet, but there's also a time to vocalize. And we have that opportunity. We can vocalize. We can use our voices to wake our bodies up. We can change pace by being a little bit more floaty. There's some wonderful balance and bending things we can do. Stroking the wild horse's mane is one of my favorites. And it's really simple. You can do it while you're sitting down. It comes from Qigong. And the idea is, imagine how gentle you would need to be if you were approaching a wild horse. You just barely stroke it. Right, on one side, and then you just sort of barely stroke it on the other. You have no idea how much is happening in your brain when you do just this much. What you're doing is engaging the parasympathetic nervous system, and it keys everything down. Engaging the cognitive, opening the pathways to the cognitive learning at the same time. It doesn't take much. Those of you want to do something more complicated, you can start to do teacup and saucer things like that actually involve the brain as well. You can go reverse and I can teach you. Anyway, kids love this stuff. That's just, again, it's about moving, about understanding that the mind is not just between our ears. It runs right down our spine and into our bodies. But in terms of representing this to the kids, now they can absolutely handle the very simplified neurobiology that I shared with you. But I love this as a representation at the same time. You should show them that the lizard down there, that reptilian brain who's always on alert. Barbara, would you mind hitting the lights for me again, please? Is one way of thinking about it. And the mammal in the middle. Now the cortex up here is part of what led eventually to the higher mind of the human. People talk about our higher porpoise, having a higher porpoise. That's where our energy and our higher ideas come. So this is a graphic that works for them. In my course, Taming the Tiger, the exercises that we did basically fell into three categories. Either we're petting the lizard, that is really trying to calm down the alert, or we're feeding the mouse, making people feel a little bit more sustained, nourished in their hearts, or they're hugging the monkey. That is, they're actually getting the kind of connection that they need and desire. And here's some of the things we played with. Name it to tame it. Kids getting used to understanding and articulating what it is that they're feeling. Just doing a sort of body scan and saying, I notice, like I can tell you right now, I can notice I'm breathing. I'm not breathing as deeply as I usually do. It's probably because I'm feeling a little bit guarded about time. And I'm wondering if this is working for you. So I'm noticing that. I'm a little contracted, right? So kids get used to doing that. It actually helps them know where that's happening. When you name it, you can tame it. Sounding boards, playing with sounds is really powerful. And I'm just going to do one little one with you. And I want you to, she had a Buddha bowl. You can use a guitar string or a piano key. Just listen until you notice the sound going away. That's all. One sound. And put up your hand when it's gone. Takes a while, right? And for that moment, for that small moment, you were right here, right now, but the fact is that we can take in lots of sounds, and that the goal is not peace. The goal is receptivity. The goal then, if you take a couple of minutes at the beginning of the class, is just to ask them to notice the sounds. Cars going by, birds chirping outdoors, other voices, either out in the corridors or the playing fields. But just getting them to notice what's going on is a form of attention training, and it changes their brains. Another example, as I told you, anything we do, when you fire your wire, you transfer a state into a trait. Zooming in and zooming out has to do with a full body scan. You could ask, for example, just notice your feet. Do you guys have your feet on the ground? Mm-hmm. So you might just bring attention to, your big toe. And maybe we would have them sort of scan their bodies gradually, piece by piece, but then that's zooming in. And then to zoom out, just noticing how does, are you chilly in the room? Is there, a lawnmower running outside? Can you keep zooming in and zooming out and realizing you're part of it? Again, that's integration, where you're not something apart from, but a part of. So the more that they get that training of coming in, and then zooming back out, noticing their surroundings and each other. Time zones just means right now, are you thinking about what you're doing after this meeting? Are you right here, right now, in this meeting? Are you thinking about that mistake you made earlier in the day? Or that call you forgot to do? What time zone are you in right now? Just teaching the habit of noticing. No judgment, but just noticing. Are you in the past? Are you in the future? Or are you right here in the present? That's a habit of mind that's very helpful. Empty boat, I know there are a few of my colleagues here. I've mentioned this too. And I am going to ask if you would don't just invite if you go along with me. You don't have to close your eyes. But just imagine that you are out on a clear, beautiful lake on a beautiful day and no one's around. Not a cloud in the sky and not a person in sight. And you're in the center of the lake floating along on your boat and suddenly you feel, bonk, someone's boat has just busted into yours. What do you do?
Well, you turn towards the noise.
You turn toward the noise?
See if there's any damage.
Checking out the damage? You're looking first at your boat? What might your reaction be?
React quickly.
React quickly? Would you have any words?
Oh, the heck?
Holy shit, what was that? What else? I can imagine thinking, are you kidding me? Like there isn't enough space on this lake? You had to come bump my boat? Maybe you're just far more advanced at this than you're even aware. But the empty boat actually comes from a Zen tradition of recognizing that most people really, forgot the next part of the story. When you wheel around ready to let fly at the person who's just bumped into your boat, who was so thoughtless, there's no one there. Now how do you respond?
What the?
Is it nicer than the one I'm on? I'm gonna take that.
What the? Just
Coming
even.
from
Yeah.
underneath. Are you curious?
What's going
From a
on
different place. Curiosity is okay. Curiosity is not aggression. Curiosity that takes us out of the reptilian brain. Right there. Wonder what just happened. And the fact is, most of us, this is what the Zen tradition says, most of us, this is where that story comes from, are kind of a little unconscious when we bump into each other. Most of us aren't intending to be fractious or critical or offending. And this is a very powerful tool working with parents, telling students, right? So-and-so didn't mean to exclude you. Probably it was an unconscious thing. Oops. Oops. I wonder what that was about. Oh well. Oops. Very powerful. Because a feeling neurologically takes 90 seconds. A feeling registers only for 90 seconds. So all that other resentment and the story that gets going and the planning and the strategizing, that's all the other wheels of our brain trying to compensate for the fact that we had a little bit of a bump. So when we can quiet down the reptile, we have a whole range of different choices, and we can impart this to the kids as well. It's just a small example. And rope burn just has to do with, what are you gripping right now? Do you need something to happen? Is that part of what's going on? Is that why your hands are blistering? Something hurting because you're holding onto it too fast? Just different ways of thinking through this. I'm just modeling some of the things I used in the spring. and thought bubbles. You've seen that. There's a beautiful piece. If I had more time, I would show you. But what is that bubble over your head right now? I wonder if they are annoyed at how long I've already taken it. When will this thing end already? Just getting aware of what you have up there in your thought bubble, and then inviting the kids to think about the fact that people are walking around with things in their mind all the time. It really engenders compassion and empathy, and again, a habit of mind so that when there is a bump, they might think, he might have been in a hurry, right? So anyway, I'll move on. Slogans help. They're simple. You don't have to be running a course. The fact is that reptilian brain gives us a negative bias in our brains. I loved finding that out because I felt like something was wrong with me. And this is what the kids said too in the spring when they learned this. That reptilian brain is geared to always see danger first, to see negativity first. It is a term of science to talk about the negative bias of the brain. It's something we need to work to overcome in order to anchor mindful behavior. And this helps, Don't believe everything you think. Because your brain it's firing off messages. It's doing its job. Thank you very much, little lizard. Okay, no, I don't think there's a saber-toothed tiger here. I'm okay, I hear ya. I don't need to take it in. HALT is actually from 12-step programs. I don't know if any of you are familiar. The H stands for a whole host of feeling states. The idea is that when you're in any of these feeling states, you just stop. Because any decisions or any words spoken in these feeling states are probably not going to serve us very well. H stands for hungry, hurried, hurt, horny. A lot of bad behavior can happen when you make decisions in those feeling states. Angry for the A, lonely for the T, for the L, and tired with the T. So simple slogan like that, HALT, just helps the kids self-check. Am I in any of these feeling states? Maybe I'll just not speak. Maybe I'll just not make a decision until I've taken care of that feeling state first. What you think of me is none of my business. It's not like meant in a sarcastic way. It's just we can't possibly know what's in another person's mind, right? If we engage our lives in that calculus, we're out of our lives. We're in somebody else's head, and we can't do the math. So simply deciding, bumps might happen. I don't know what it's about. I might find out. I might invite a conversation. But this can take a lot of fretting out of human relations. And then think is a nice guide, I think, for testing when you're speaking. The T standing for, is it true? The H standing for, is it helpful? I, is it inspiring? N, is it necessary? K, is it kind? Again, just like HALT, sort of asking to invite mindful speech, mindful action. And then again, the slogan, compare and despair. When we find ourselves comparing ourselves with somebody else, we're setting ourselves up for a bad situation. So these are just some of the slogans. And I know Karen Keppel is a pro at this. She's been doing this for a while. She's got STOP, S-T-O-P-P, in her classroom. You want to say what that stands for?
Stop, think, observe, organize, plan, and proceed.
Plan and proceed. So the idea is already built in there, her own little stop sign. And the kids respond to that. We can start where we are. And I want to tell you that we're surrounded with neighbors who are already launched. I met people from these schools in August when I was up at Omega at a conference on mindfulness and education. There were about 450 educators. And these are just the few who are in our immediate radius. We have an opportunity to collaborate with them. So it's already happening, both in the lower elementary school level and in the high schools. There are many potential applications at RIP and ethics, and field trips, assemblies, the ISC, allied arts, the cafeteria, how we eat, advisories, health, sports teams. The applications are wherever we want them. Embedded is a great place to put them. And by that, oops, sorry. I just want to say that, for example, in talking about Ishmael Bea's The Long Way Gone, there are several passages where the guy is reading his body and having a reaction. It doesn't matter, take a piece of music. What's going on? What is the music resonating with? What sort of feeling state is that supposed to provoke? Characters in literature, oh well, so-and-so must have been in his amygdala. Anyway, there are programs across the country who have various curriculum programs we could use. We don't have to do anything formal. I'm just brainstorming here. But integration is the watchword. It's not mindfulness isn't something that we are adding on to what we do. It's just the opportunity to become aware of something that we're already doing and understanding that a healthy mind emerges from an integrated system. Healthy systems are integrated systems. When a system isn't maximizing complexity, i.e. if we're taking shortcuts with each other, harboring resentments rather than communicating, inflating grades rather than differentiating our instruction, when we do that, we're avoiding the complexity that's in front of us, and then we end up with either rigidity or chaos. And I think we've seen both. We see both all the time. It depends on how we're characterologically inclined, how much tolerance we have for either. But there is the potential of more balance, and I don't know exactly what that would look like. As I say, I'm offering some of where I've been and what I've done, and hope some of it might be of benefit, and open it up to conversation. I do think, though, that as educators, we have to monitor whatever we want to regulate. And if we intend to monitor, then we need to know what it is that we're monitoring and seeking to regulate. That takes some mental training, and there are certain things, even computer programs that are terrific. Lumosity, has anyone ever played on Lumosity, for example, or other? Yeah, they're very, very handy. They're very effective, and very much on offer for free trials, for example, or big bulk subscriptions at a school. We can think about that. But the fact is that science shows that happy teachers make happy students. It's not just a happy idea. The fact is that the mind is both embodied and relational. And in a recent study, this was with clinicians rather than with educators, but they found that even if the counselor wasn't him or herself sort of imparting the skills of mindfulness to the clients, that just the fact that they themselves were practicing mindfulness had a huge effect on the relative efficacy of the therapy offered. That was a long sentence. Did you get that? Like, you don't even have to be teaching the kids this stuff. So long as you're practicing this stuff, it has an effect on the kids. I don't know. Seems like, it's like a twofer. So I just want to invite, ask yourself, what's coloring your perception? Just generally, these are questions we can ask ourselves. This is, I'm just being a little jokey here.